Welcome to Under the Wings Helmet. I'm Kyle Simmons. My co-host, former Michigan and NFL offensive lineman Thomas Guynes. Rob Penn couldn't be with us this week. This week's episode is sponsored by Jabs Gym. Learn the fundamentals of boxing through high-intensity cardio and strength workouts with locations throughout Metro Detroit, the Eastern Market, Ferndale, and Birmingham. We'd also like to thank our other sponsor, Juke. You can purchase their football-inspired athletic gear at jukefootball.com. Last Saturday, the Wolverines defeated Bowling Green 31-6 at Michigan Stadium. J.J. McCarthy completed 8 of 13 passes for 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Blake Corum had 101 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, and Donovan Edwards chipped in with 50 yards rushing on 9 carries. Thomas, obviously the big story here is the 3 interceptions that were thrown by J.J., but I do want to hear your overall thoughts about the game versus Bowling Green.
Overall thoughts about the game was lackluster. Definitely can't have that level of product, if you will, as we continue to start to move into the meat and potatoes of the season. Luckily, it was a situation where, and I'm not down on the guys at Bowling Green. A lot of U of M guys I played with and coaches that were here when I was a player here at Michigan are now on the staff down in Bowling Green. If it wasn't really for the fact that we have the whole we have to be able to come back and to combat a 3-turnover day with those 3 interceptions, obviously, like I said, once we get later into the Big Ten season, that definitely probably could have spelled a loss for the Wolverines. So we were lucky in that particular aspect. Hopefully we are getting these growing pains out of the way early in these sort of situations where even if you're not getting our best shot, the shot that's given is going to be good enough for us to ultimately get the W, which is the biggest thing. Secondly, to my recollection, I think we came out of this game for the most part injury-free, which is huge as we continue to move into the Big Ten season. So again, I don't necessarily want to say that this was an anomaly, if you will. I'm hoping that it is based off of the performance that JJ has put up for the last 2 weeks. But even just listening to those numbers, 8 of 13 for, a pedestrian 100 and whatever, 70 yards you just said. Is it time to panic? I still don't believe that it's time to panic. I think that based off of the level of competition, we, as the cliche goes, we play down to the level of our competition. I definitely don't believe that we put our best foot forward. And that was seen, even though, we won the game 31-6. Again, Bowling Green played hard. Hats off to those guys. But at the end of the day, it's still Bowling Green, and we still are the University of Michigan. There's no reason why we're not putting up bigger numbers. But it is what it is at this point. Continue to go back to look at the film, figure out what it is that we are doing right and what it is that we need to try to work on. So at that particular aspect, I think it was a good thing because it definitely gave us some coaching points that we need to go back to the drawing board and really try to shore up some things at this point. Rutgers is going to come in all lathered up. It's homecoming week for us. Rutgers is, on a nice little run right now themselves, being 3-0. So I definitely feel like, we're going to have our work cut out for us. This is not going to be the Rutgers team of old, I don't believe. But the other good thing is that Coach Harbaugh is going to be back at the helm, I believe. So hopefully by having Coach Harbaugh back, continue to bring back some continuity, if you will, and allowing the coaches that have been carrying this loaded within the head coaching position, kind of getting back into their natural spots and bring some level of symmetry and cohesiveness back to the sideline. Hats off to the coaches that have shown up, Mike Hart and Jay Harbaugh and Coach Moore. Those guys have done a really good job as far as stepping up during, these adverse times, if you will. But again, just looking to put the band back together, get Coach Harbaugh back to where he's supposed to be at, let those coaches be back in their natural coaching positions as it stands thus far, and really just get back to the X's and O's and the overall execution. I'm really interested to see how Donovan responds this upcoming week. I'm not really seeing the Donovan of last year. And again, I know we spoke on some things where he put up some pretty lofty goals, some pretty lofty comparisons. I'm just not seeing that level of productivity out the young man as of yet. But again, the season's still young. The offensive line is still gelling. I thought we did a pretty good job as far as pass pro went for the most part. JJ does what JJ does, but again, continuing to work on changing the line of scrimmage, especially in the run game. That's going to be my biggest point of emphasis, not position blocking, but taking that front seven and moving those defensive individuals against their will and taking them to another location on the field.
Now, before we get into Saturday's game versus Rutgers, I did want to talk about the upcoming conference schedule overall. Now, after watching the first three games, now I know you've been saying that it's been a very vanilla, offense so far. So
Right.
I guess with that in mind, it's like we're starting off here with Rutgers, and then after that, we have the next 3 out of our 4 games are all on the road. We have Nebraska, and then we're at Minnesota, and then we're home versus Indiana, and then we go up to East Lansing. I mean, these won't be easy games to win on the road. So, are there any concerns going into this, these first 4 or 5 games into the schedule?
I don't think that you necessarily want to use the word concerns because the schedule is the schedule. The games have to be played here in Ann Arbor if they're on the road. It is what it is. It's the nature of the beast. I think when you start talking about concern, the concern should be with the man in the mirror. Am I, as a player, actually doing all that I can to put forth the best product possible on those upcoming football Saturdays? That's the point of concern. Not so much who it is in which the team has to face, not so much who is an individual player, have to face. I just need to make sure that as that individual, I've done all the work that needed to be done. And I've said it time and time again. During the week, that's the work. Saturday is payday. Saturday should be fun. Saturdays should be easy. Easy in the sense we've put ourselves in such dire straits throughout the week that the game physically, mentally, emotionally should be easier than what we just went through during the week. And I'm meaning from making it classes and exams, because again, oftentimes as we continue to talk about college football, the college part sometimes gets left out, and all we continue to talk about is the football aspect.
Right.
But we still have to remember these young men are student athletes at the University of Michigan. That's one of the selling points that we like to hang our hat on. That when our guys graduate, we're graduating with meaningful degrees. We have the largest alumni association in the world, and when you go out, you represent that Block M. It says something. It allows you to compete with Ivy League schools or the Stanfords and the UC Berkeleys of the world. So this is not professional football where it's just that's all you do all week is football. These gentlemen have classes. You got football. You got this. You got that. They're still kids, so they're trying to carry on some level of social life, whatever that means to them. So when that week is done and that football Saturday comes up and I only have one thing to concentrate on, and that's the game, that should be the fun part. That should be the release. That should be the culminating moment, the galvanizing moment that as these young men wear that beautiful winged helmet are sitting there in that locker room and looking each other in the eyes like, okay, now it's our time. We've given of ourselves all week to everyone else. Now it's our time to get paid for the work in which we've done. So again, is it concerned with these upcoming 4 games, road trips, home games, whoever it may be? Like I said, you still got to go to the dance. I just want to know that these guys put the work in enough that once they get to the dance, they're not going to have sore feet.
Well, let's get to the fun part then. Saturday. This Saturday, the Wolverines are hosting Rutgers for a noon kickoff at the Big House. The Scarlet Knights are 3-0, 1-0 in the Big Ten Conference with a win over Northwestern in Week 1. They're led by quarterback Gavin Wimsatt and running back Kyle Simmons, who has over 350 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns in his first 3 games. So what's going to be the key to getting a W this week, Thomas?
I think the key is just going to be consistency, understanding that, it's going to be a dogfight. And again, it's going to be homecoming week for us. What better way for Rutgers to really kick off their Big Ten season. Obviously, they got the win over the Wildcats of Northwestern, but what better feather, if you will, to put it in their cap to start their season off is to come into Ann Arbor, get a dub on our homecoming day. So, we're definitely going to be getting their best shot. So I'm hoping that the coaching staff and the kids are really understanding the magnitude of this game. Again, it's a lose-lose situation. And what I mean by that is this. If we win, we're expected to win, right? Um, there's no kudos for that. But if we lose, that's going to be huge. You know, not only did you lose your first Big Ten game, but you lost your first Big Ten game to a perennial league, I don't want to say just say basement team, right? Rutgers is not highly regarded within the Big Ten or college football as a whole as a powerhouse at this particular time. Even though I want to say Rutgers is the birthplace of collegiate football, but the Scarlet Knights are coming in looking to do big things. I think these young men over in Jersey are starting to get some swag, some confidence about themselves, and feeling like that they can play on a major scale with a major program. And for us, that could be a little bit dangerous if we're not ready and taking those guys at their word that we're definitely going to receive their best shot. As I said before, win the turnover battle, win the war of attrition at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Speaking of their running back, we're going to have to pound this guy. We're going to have lane discipline. We're going to want to get to their quarterback, make their quarterback uncomfortable as possible. Based off the three teams that Rutgers has played right now, I'm not overly impressed with their level of competition, especially with some of the things that Northwestern has been going through this year. They're in a rebuilding phase, especially after the loss of Coach Fitzpatrick. So all these things to be said, yes, it sounds good for the Scarlet Knights, but honestly, I kind of feel like the Scarlet Knights and the Wolverines are in the same space, right? We haven't really played any high-powered competition as of yet, none of note, and I don't believe the Scarlet Knights have either. So I believe this game between the Wolverines and the Scarlet Knights is going to be the fans in the the collegiate football world's uh, first real look at what both programs are going to be bringing this year. With that being said, let's delve a little bit deeper into the playbook. Let's, again, keep JJ calm. And as an offensive line, let's keep our quarterback clean and open up these lanes. As I said before, I'm really looking for some big things from Donovan Edwards right now. Um, I'm not seeing the Donovan Edwards of old, and that's not a knock on that kid. That's just based off the body of work that I've seen thus far. Not to say that he can't shift gears as the season progresses. Again, I don't really feel like this is the Blake of last year, the Blake Horn of last year. Uh, is he a 10 right now? No, I really feel like he's probably about a 9.25 at this point. Just noticing some of the cuts and the reads that he has made over the last 3 weeks, whereas it's not as instinctive as it was last year. So again, I still feel like we're knocking off some of that rust, especially after the injury. Do I believe that the knee is healed based off his body of work of what I've seen right now? Yes. It's now just trying to get the football instincts to kind of kick back in and his overall confidence in what he's doing. So again, it's going to be an interesting Saturday to see what both these programs bring to the table. I just really feel like it's going to be whoever has the proper mindset to stay in the game. I think there's going to be some big shots thrown both ways, and who's going to be able to sustain, and who's going to make the best game day adjustments. Again, I thought we did a really good job last year, especially after halftime. Even some of those games where we were down, we went in, made the proper adjustments, put the
Mm-hmm.
uh press the gas, and the Wolverines were off and running. This year, I'm hoping to see a little bit more of that, but a little bit sooner, prior to halftime, because again, I don't feel like that, at least from what I've seen thus far, we are a team that's going to be ready for make it a track meet off the bat. As the season progresses and things start to gel a little bit more, possibly, but let's, step on these guys' necks early and often, get into halftime, make whatever adjustments we need to make, and then let's just really take the top off of it from there. get out this game injury-free, put up the appropriate amount of style points to keep us in the top 5 rankings, hopefully at least number 2, if not climbing to number 1, and get ready for that following week.
Well said. So now before we get out of here, it's homecoming week here in Ann Arbor, and I did want to ask you about your first homecoming game, not just the game, but the week leading up to that. What do you have any memories of that?
Homecoming for me was never really a big deal. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I say that is because the university's so big. It was cool that, as I got older, um, it meant a little bit more. You started to understand things and the pageantry and everything that went along with it. But as I said earlier, you're so focused throughout the week with all of the things that you have to do as a student athlete here at the University of Michigan, and especially back in the 90s. We had our opportunities kind of go out and let our hair down a little bit, but the grind was the grind, and the grind was the master that needed to be served at that time. So you saw the kids out on State Street and Southview, and everybody was getting it in. Um, yeah, I never lost a homecoming game, so that Saturday night was always a fun time. But that week thereof, like I said before, you were so committed and focused to the work at hand. You really didn't have time to take part in the revelry that was taking place on campus. So, as a alumnus now, it's more fun, if you will, because I had the opportunity to catch up with former teammates, experience some of the shenanigans and hijinks that take place on campus. Even now, as a older Wolverine, as you can see the gray in the beard, I consider myself one of the silver Wolverines now. But again, looking forward to having a great week as an alumnus, but as a player, it was all about trying to get the W. Once we got the W, you went out and did your thing, whatever your thing was. But as we have been talking about, the season is the season, and we're just now getting started. So, you got to have a short memory. That win is behind you. Now it's time for us to start setting our sights on that next opponent.
And that's it for this week's episode of Under the Wings Helmet. Thank you to our sponsors, Jab, Jim, and Juke. Also, be sure to check out Under the Wings Helmet merchandise at asapelite.com. Come back next week where we preview the game versus Nebraska. And be sure to listen to us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and the Believe Podcast Network. You can also watch us on asapelite.com, the ASAP Elite YouTube channel, and the Believe Network. For the Silver Wolverine, Thomas Guynes, I'm Kyle Simmons. Go Blue.
Go Blue, baby.